While thousands of Iranians marched to mourn the death of hardline Iranian cleric and President Ebrahim Raisi, the West is watching to see what will come next. Raisi, who was killed earlier this week after his helicopter crash, came to power in 2021. He earned the dubious nickname the Butcher of Tehran for his role in the mass execution of thousands of political prisoners in 1988. The next election is set for June 28th and will come at a time when the country faces deep internal unrest and increasing challenges abroad. Iran has nuclear ambitions and has been a staunch backer of Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza.
Joining us now is someone who was on the ground at the funeral march and who spoke with Iranians about the state of the country. Journalist Kim Ives, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
So immediately when this happened, my brain went to Mossadegh. I'm not sure if there are Iranians that are, reminiscing on their history of coups and intervention here, but there's also some talk of potentially this being an intentional, grounding, an intentional crash of the helicopter, and that it could come from within, given that he was in line to potentially become supreme leader. I'm curious, what you make of the current circumstance and what you heard on the ground just initially.
Well, I think, that was everybody's initial reaction was that, was this some kind of assassination? Of course, this is right out of the playbook of the CIA and Mossad. And we know that in the response to Israel's bombing of the Iranian embassy in Syria, the Iranians gave Israel a pretty severe spanking in their response, landing 5 of the 7 missiles they shot at their airfields on target. So, yes, it also, I'd watched Raisi the previous morning on my television in the hotel room at his last press conference in Azerbaijan. And that was going through my mind. I said, Azerbaijan, that's pretty close to Israel. I hope they're taking security measures there. And God knows, on the way back, the helicopter went missing. And there was apparently some, I suppose still unconfirmed eyewitness report of seeing fire on the plane before it crashed, but on the helicopter. I don't know if that's true or not. But in any case, I hope the investigation is very thorough.
What do we expect to come next in terms of who will succeed him and what that might mean for the political dynamic in Iran? Can we expect any major changes to government policy?
I don't think so. I think that the vice president has taken over, as far as I understand, and I think they're certainly prepared for what's coming. I can't imagine, as the winds of war sort of swirl around the Middle East, that they're not prepared for this kind of thing. But I don't think, of course, they foresaw that there would be something as banal as a helicopter crash. But my sense from watching these crowds, millions of people just in the street, clearly moved by grief and people sobbing, men and women, right and left. It was a very powerful display of attachment to Raisi and to the regime. So I don't think they would, I say regime, you see that's the conditioning I have to the government. And they, I think, are probably going to stay the course.
I think about a lot of the lessons that we should have learned following the coup of Mohammad Mossadegh. One of them being that Iran is a very old country with a very rich culture whose political mind spans hundreds of years. And the West tends to have a very short-sighted view of politics and changes in regime. Now, a bunch of the folks at the march were chanting death to Israel. We've heard similar chants following the coup of Mohammad Mossadegh. Is this the kind of reaction from the public we're seeing that is already, blaming Israel and ready to move on with their politics, that is resistant to the imperialism we've seen from the West, regardless of who's in highest office?
Right. I mean, this is a truly anti-imperialist nation. They are, of course, have been punished for these decades since 1979, since their revolution, by the U.S. in particular, and of course Israel has been their principal adversary in the region. So I think, the population. You speak of the age, you can feel it. It's, I mean, I'd never been to Iran before, and but the history, the profound identity of Persians as the cradle of civilization, could we say, is very much present. And anyway, yes, I think that they are going to continue with their. I was there as part of the SOBH, S-O-B-H, which means Sunrise Festival, Film Festival, and all the prize winners were for Palestinian films. They really see this Palestine battle as being central to their identity, to their policy, and are really the people of Iran are foursquare behind the Palestinians.
Can you confirm some reports in Western media that there were chants of death to America during the funeral proceedings for Raisi?
I can't. I don't speak Farsi, but I did witness one case where members of our delegation were being taught how to chant in Farsi, "Death to Israel." So I do know that was being done, but I didn't hear "Death to America." I can't say I heard that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if you go to the former U.S. Embassy, which is now a museum called the Museum to the Den of Spies, which is a very beautiful, very artistically done exhibition of their discoveries of the various forms of espionage they were carrying out from that embassy. I wouldn't be surprised that they were chanting "Death to America." I don't think that most Iranians, I don't think most anti-imperialists worldwide make a huge difference between Israel and the U.S., particularly the way they're conducting their foreign policy.
Yeah, and related to that, the Biden administration has been receiving a lot of pushback for its official response to the passing of the president. They issued official condolences, and at the UN, its deputy ambassador stood up for this moment of silence. And a lot of critics of the Biden administration have said that it was inappropriate for them to do that in light of these "Death to America" chants, as well as this man being known as the Butcher of Tehran. Was there any reaction to some of the American backlash in Iran? And what do you make of some of the criticisms of the Biden administration? Do you think that they handled their reaction appropriately?
Well, it's interesting. I'm just learning now. I mean, I just got off the plane late last night, that they did respond, because the word I heard on the street, as it were, there was that the U.S. had made no response, and the television was more or less announcing every head of state, every nation that would send their condolences, and the U.S. was not among them when I was listening. So maybe that's happened in the time frame since. But I think that frankly, they don't make a huge difference, as I think most countries that are in the crosshairs of the U.S. don't make a huge difference between Republican and Democrat, because I think they see it, I would say justifiably, as one party with two heads as far as foreign policy is concerned. They pretty much walk in lockstep. So whatever sort of bipartisan sniping is going on in that respect, I don't think the Iranians would pay it much mind.
Now, Kim, what's something that the Western media isn't covering that you witnessed on the ground there during the funeral procession? You wrote on Twitter that the mood was somber. It seems that there was also this mood of resistance and fighting imperialism, both in Palestine and the solidarity there in Iran. But do you feel Western media is doing justice, the coverage of the impact of this in Iran?
No, of course not. I mean, the picture, and I can consider, or I think I have some antibodies to the mainstream media's narrative. But nonetheless, when you land in Iran and you see the sort of grit and perseverance in the face of adversity, you know, the sanctions and the sanction regime, as, for instance, tour guides told us when we toured the city a little bit on the margins of the film festival, you know, the sanctions are really biting, but there's a sort of wry air about the Iranians. You know, they deal with it with a kind of a shrug and a smile. And, you know, none of that, shall I call it heroism or perseverance, is conveyed in the U.S. media at all. There's, you know, they're just portrayed as fanatical demons, you know, and, you know, that's not the case at all. Even for myself, I hadn't had that clear an understanding of sort of the structure and the Islamic nature of the government. But it's Islamic in name, but is their leader, their supreme leader, that different from, say, the Queen of England? No. You know, it's just their identity, which is captured in Ayatollah Khamenei. So I think that when you visit, when you see the people, when you experience the country firsthand, you do feel that there is not an alignment between reality and the Western media's portrayal.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on the program to help us break this down and giving us the on-the-ground perspective. Kim Ives, thanks again.
Thank you very much.